Rob, thanks very much. It's wonderful to have you back again in our studios. I know we've done this before in the past, but it's always great, not just to see you personally because we've known each other for a long time, but it's great to have you here and talk about something that I know you're passionate about, and that's running for the Liberal seat in the city of Cambridge, which actually has a broad scope. So you live in North Dumfries, which is part of the Cambridge riding.
Right.
But also, I think North Brant, too, was...
It might be a piece of it, but I'm not sure because there was some changes.
Adjustments,
the Electoral Commission, the Electoral Boundary Commissions federally were making a lot of changes. And what we've got now is basically Cambridge south of the 401 currently.
Yeah. Interesting. I believe it's important for the voter to get to know the candidate personally. I think... You know, it's easy on a municipal election to do that, but I think even provincially, there's a lot of people still. I think, you know, some might say 5%. I believe there's a bigger percentage than that vote for the person. Because,
I got you.
Because let's face it, you know this as well as I know this. You know, how many people in the city of Cambridge or township in North Dumfries are actually members of a party?
Right.
Not very many of them.
No.
Most of them are kind of voting on what they hear, what they and what they see. And I think it's really important. We could do a podcast and put it on audio, but it's really important for people to see a person and to kind of get to know them.
I get you, yeah. I mean, look, it's interesting because municipal politics is all about the individual. There is no party, there is no leader, right? So you're the one that's out there, out front, and promoting your ideas, your concepts, what you want to do. And usually, you're someone who's been active in the community because a lot of times, as you know, I do the Old Grey Mayor's podcast that you were kind enough to come on in episode 37 Old Grey Mayor's podcast if anybody's interested. But usually a candidate is someone that the community has said, hey, I like what you do. I think I want you to make decisions about roads and waste and transit. But when it comes to provincial or federal politics, there's still a little bit of that, but the party and the leader are really the main focus. And people's impressions of the party and the leader really filter down to the candidate. So how much does the candidate influence that? It's really hard to say. I'm hoping it influences it a lot. But, you know, we'll see what happens.
Personally, I kind of think it should.
I agree.
Right? We should be voting for the person we want to represent us because once you get there, you might be part of the government, it might not be part of the government, but you still have a lot of impact on what you can do for the community.
And you're right. And I think what happens over time is backbenchers are seen to have a real secondary role, right? It's sort of like everything focuses around maybe the Premier's office or the Prime Minister's office. But if anyone knows me, Rob Deutschmann, they know how I've conducted myself at the municipal level, how active I get on issues, you know. And I've researched and I've challenged on issues. And I'm not going to be afraid to take that style to Queen's Park and advocate hard for the people of Cambridge, whichever side of the aisle I happen to be on.
Yeah. So we should probably let everybody know, in case they forgot, you were actually the mayor of the township of North Dumfries.
Yes, thank you. And so mayor of North Dumfries. And funny thing, when I ran for mayor of North Dumfries, I had no real concept of regional council. But by virtue of being mayor, I was automatically regional council. So I sort of equate that to dog years. So political years like 2, you know, mayor and regional council at the same time. And more recently, people would know me as having been on regional council for the past 2 years.
And I remember back then when you actually got elected, I think it was literally the day after you got elected, I gave you a call because we were struggling to try and find a place for a major employer to come to the community. Dr. Etker.
Dr. Etker, Dr. Etker's been a huge, it's been a huge reference point on the Wilmot Land Assembly as an example of what you need to do down in London. And it's funny, I wasn't...
Sadly, though, we had a place located for them out in North Dumfries.
You know what? They even made an offer on the land. So thanks to your call, I jumped right in. I called the head of Dr. Etker, went down to visit him in Mississauga. But you know what came out of all of that? So this is an example of what I do, okay? So seeing what we needed to do, I had to bring in, Mike Murray was the CAO at the region, and I'd say to Mike, okay, what are we doing for industrial economic development? And he said, we don't do that at the regional level, right? Each municipality, so we had like 7 doors somebody would have to knock on when they come into Waterloo region. And I said, well, that doesn't make sense. And little North Dumfries didn't have anybody.
Right.
So I had to bring...
They had a mayor.
Yeah, well, I had to bring in all the pieces together, and we actually got to the point where they made an offer on the land, but they just couldn't come to an agreement on it. So they went down to London, where there was shovel-ready land. So at the regional level, I advocated when we were doing, those strategic plans you like to do, what are you going to do for the next 4 years? And I remember being at there, and I said, well, we should do industrial development, economic development. And one of the old timers, shot back, we don't do economic development. I'm like, okay, I stepped back for a second, because sometimes you got to use these more than this.
Oh, yeah.
So, especially when you're the new guy. So I listened, and eventually, what do we have? Tony Lamantia and the Waterloo Region Economic Development Corporation came out of that work and that advocacy, because it just made sense. If you're a business coming here, because if you remember, we had the Canada's Technology Triangle, and that was sort of the compromise, right? Ken Sealing was great for compromises, so he didn't want to step on toes about domestic industrial development. So this was the international development. So all the mayors would go on, Berlin and other trips and stuff, which is fine. I totally support that sort of thing. But they didn't want to touch domestic. So then finally we all agreed, look, this is better, because we lost Schneider's at the time, right? We lost Dr. Oetker at the time. And we said, look, we're missing out. We got to do this as one. Now, I'm not going to get into an amalgamation talk or anything like that. We're just leaving that aside. But it's nice that we can get together on services like that. And the region has done a good job on that. And Tony's done a great job there.
Yeah, I think there's no question about it. Governments and politicians need to understand we need to partner with people too.
Yeah, 100%.
That's how it works, right? Because
this is what I found during my time in municipal politics, and I can tell you, it's funny. If a mayor at the time had only voted to put in a second pad, I wouldn't be here with you today. Okay, that was it. One vote. It was a yes or a no. Changed the course of my life. But I have found through politics that there are so many people in the community that give of their time. Freely give of. They're working. Now they're volunteering, they're delivering food to homeless people, or they're offering their services in terms of economic advisory boards or what have you. And we have to tap into that, because people want to contribute. They don't necessarily want to run for something, but they're happy to donate their time, their expertise, their knowledge, and we have to always make sure we tap into that.
Yeah, no, those were good lessons learned along the way that made significant change, that bettered our collective communities, and I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah,
right?
I agree with that 100%. And sometimes you get along that path and you run into certain situations that become a little more difficult, but you overcome those working together, communicating together.
But you're not supposed to go through politics and not have sore toes when you come out. You're supposed to have sore toes.
No, here's a better thing. So Ken Sealing, when I first got elected mayor, right? Ken Sealing said to me, his line was, "Your circle of friends gets smaller."
Yeah.
Right, and that's true. Over time, because you're going to make decisions that isn't going to please everybody. I can't even think of something that's 100% one way or another.
No.
And so over time that happens. But I think all people in politics, even like when I look at this race for provincial, for Cambridge, okay, everyone who's running, I think Cambridge has one of the best races around. When you take a look at the quality of the people, from the incumbent, Brian Riddell, to Marjorie Knight, to Carla Johnson, to myself, people with a lot of experience who have given of their time. And, I think it's the race to watch.
Yeah, interesting.
Yes.
Well, the whole province will be a race to watch. We got lots of races to watch in the future.
Locally,
Personally, I am a free trader. I firmly believe that as a Canadian and the benefits of our business is having the ability to open new markets elsewhere. I remember when the Harper government was pushing for the CETA agreement, the European Free Trade Agreement. Right. And having people come to me, small businesses come to me who maybe had, a local market and were going to have competition from European markets, saying to me, "Greg, this isn't right, this isn't right." I said, well, wait a minute. We have, right now we have 40 million people in Canada. That was their market. And the U.S., which was 400 million people.
Right.
But there was 500 million people in the European Union that was now their market as well.
Yeah.
We need to do that because it's about the globe now. It's as easy to trade really in Europe as it is to trade in the United States. So when we come to this point, and the reason why we're in the middle of an election at this point is because Donald Trump was reelected back in November in the United States. He's got a 4-year mandate, and I know pundits will roughly say, well, it wasn't that big a mandate. He didn't win by that much. Well, he got the House, he got Congress, he got the
Sure,
Senate.
I'm not gonna argue with that about that at all. I mean, he is the winner. He got all the House. He won all the swing states. So, and he increased his vote in a number of areas. So at the end of the day, you have to respect that. Even though you could say, oh, but for 200,000 votes the other way, it's sort of like. But
I know
again,
it's a moot point at this situation.
I agree.
But we're going to be faced with, we're trying to deal with a guy who is.
Well, he's threatening tariffs.
Yeah.
Okay, and if that's what you're getting to, I can understand. So first off, I agree. Free trade is important. Okay, small businesses have to learn to adapt, and we have to, though, understand what are the issues that they're facing, so that we can assist in terms of market development or what have you. Right? Like is it a financing issue to produce your products to get them over there? And there are some programs that deal with economic finance. Like you've got a contract with someone, but you need the money to build the widgets. Okay, we'll finance that because you've got a signed contract. So let's help you out with that. Here, look, I think, with respect, I don't think Doug Ford, I mean, first of all, I support the Team Canada approach.
Right.
Okay, 100% support that. What I have a concern about, though, is I don't see a Team Ontario approach. Okay, I don't see Doug Ford reaching across the aisle to create that Team Ontario squad with the leaders from the other parties. I don't see, and maybe I missed it, but I don't see the roundtable in Ontario of businesses, labor, and experts to advise the Premier on what needs to be done. Yeah. So, I saw, I don't know if you saw, I saw Howard Lutnick's testimony the other day, right?
I did.
And what did he say? He said, likely not tariffs now if you're working on the border, but come April, we're going to start looking at it.
Right.
Right? I think this issue of tariffs is not the true reason that we're going into this election. Okay, and I'm not going to. I could get into. You've heard all the comments, and I'm not going to use our time to talk about that. It's just, let's just say I don't believe that Doug Ford has taken steps by calling this election at this time. With 2 more years in a mandate, could have spent the time just focused on that. It's sort of like I equate it to this: a kid has a 2-year contract for a hockey team, and before he even starts on the ice, and this contract is dealing with between Doug Ford and Donald Trump, right? So before the kid even starts, he says, I want a 4-year contract. Why don't we run out the 2 years, see how you do, and then decide to give you an extension on that contract? So that's the analogy there.
However, as a politician wanting to get elected and get your Liberal Party elected as a government, let's have an election.
I'm happy that he's having this election. I'll tell you why. Because he's not going to be able to answer the question, why this election, okay? And I read the book on David Peterson's call in 1990, okay? And his reason was Meech Lake. Nobody bought it. Yep. Okay, he still believes it. In fact, he was just quoted. If you saw the quote, he just gave an interview and still said he truly believes that he was doing it because of Meech Lake. No one really bought that, okay? But he pointed out, you can't answer that question. And Doug Ford cannot answer that question. Yeah. And so people they're common sense. Why are we having an election now? And look we're in the middle of the winter. I mean, it's the most brutal time to try to drive wood in the ground. You know what I'm talking about.
I said to somebody the other day, it's going to be the cleanest looking election you'll see because nobody's going to be able to get a sign in the ground.
You know what? You know where you're going to make your money? On that electronic billboard you got outside. That's where you're going to make your money. So you're going to cash in with that one.
No, I think you're right. And to some degree, I agree. I guess I agree with you in theory, for sure. But I look at, all of the arguments about it. Well, we're spending, $187 million.
I'm not talking about that.
Quite frankly, we'd be spending it in a year
2
and a
years
half
anyway. That's right. I'm not talking about that. But here's the thing. We can look at the federal government and say, hey, you've left us in a leadership lurch by having your leadership.
Yes.
Well, the province has left us in a leadership lurch by having an election right in the middle.
Good point.
So to me, those are the same things.
Yeah.
Okay. And the provincial one was intentional.
Yeah.
Okay. The federal one was just another mistake by the prime minister, right? Yeah. But for telling his finance minister maybe the day after I'm going to fire you, he wouldn't be in this situation.
You're probably right. I think though when you know, the Commerce Secretary the other day, I think really kind of highlighted where the issue is.
Yeah.
You know, the first stage, the threat for February 1st tariffs was based on securing your border and
Right.
stopping the fentanyl.
100%.
The other aspect of studying it is really to look at imbalances from the American perspective.
Right.
Now, what they're trying to do is get all these manufacturers from Canada to move and Mexico to move into the States.
Sure.
We all know that will never happen. It takes years
Yeah.
to plan that kind of a
Oh,
transition.
100% it does. And here's the thing. Like, first off, let's take a look. I think the Mexican response was, let's secure the border.
Yeah.
Okay. The Canadian response, we've started securing the border, but at the same time, we're saying, we're going to hit you hard with all these tariffs and all this stuff. Like, if you looked at the original tweet, it talked about immigrants and drugs over the border. Okay. Whatever the reality is, and I don't put it past the President of the United States to obfuscate the reality for benefit, right? I mean, it's a New York realtor, developer, businessman, right?
Yeah. We've seen that story before.
Right, we
yeah.
have. And we were successful last time, I would say. Like, you know, the whatever you want to call it, the UMSCA or the Kanmuska or whatever the name is. So we were successful. And we can be successful again by making the point to all those American congressmen and senators, governors, point out, hey, this is the reality of the situation, and I think it can make it tough for President Trump to do what he thinks he wants to do, because who knows, in 2 or 3 months, there'll probably be all sorts of other issues that he's going to have to deal with and less focus on us.
Yeah.
But that was the thing. It's sort of like this became an opportunity, okay? An opportunity for the Ontario Premier. And, you know, don't forget, he was looking at an early election on other reasons before he settled on this issue. So I think that's where the cynicism's coming in. And but from my perspective, I'm glad he's called this election.
Sure.
Because I think this is the best opportunity for change. And my ideal situation would be a minority, probably conservative government with a liberal opposition. And so by me deciding to run here in Cambridge, it's to take a conservative, progressive conservative seat off the board and add a liberal seat to the board. So that's really why I took this step. And we can get into why did I decide to make the jump from regional council to provincial politics if you want. I'd be happy to talk about that.
Yeah, talk about it.
Okay, yeah, sure. So sitting around that horseshoe for the past 2 years, right, I started to see that a lot of provincial responsibilities were falling at our level. Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, Mayor Guthrie, Cam Guthrie from Guelph, he had an acronym for it called the PIL. I don't know if you've heard this before. So it's PILL, PIL, Provincial Initiatives, Local Levy, right? And he was pointing out how much theirs was. And then when we started to look at how much our local levy is dealing with provincial initiatives, we went from like about 130 million in my first budget, about 150 in the second, to 180 in provincial priorities that the regional taxpayers are covering. So our property taxes are being used for things that property taxes were never intended for.
Right.
So I'm a believer in we need, I feel, more MPPs with municipal experience to work on, and I think it's crucial, we need a better deal between the province and the municipalities. And we need it, you know, Doug Craig had an editorial recently.
And the chamber supported Doug.
Yeah,
Doug's been on this forever.
I know, and I support him too. You know, sort of bring back 1% of all the taxes that you take out of our area. And I think the province just has to provide funding to municipalities, no strings attached. Don't attach it to a pet project or some program, because, Greg, and you know this from your municipal experience, right? As you get down from each level of government, feds, province, municipality, the best use of your tax dollars is at the municipal level.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, we have to budget, we're zero-based budget. We can't budget for a deficit, right? All the rest of them can,
they can
right?
spend away.
They get away with it, right? But we can't. And so we have to make sure we're using the dollars properly.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying, send the dollars down, let us decide, or let the municipalities decide. And that was the main reason that I was deciding to run.
I don't always question that. I think, and I don't really think most people are opportunists. I think most people are genuinely interested in making a difference.
Well,
you know, and
if you mean opportunist by like someone stepping up to another level, you know me and my background.
Yeah.
I don't really need to
Yeah, exactly.
all of
Yeah,
this, right?
yeah.
And to me, and when I was mayor, I only stayed for 4 years. And I did what I wanted to do, got that complex, my baby done,
Yep.
and moved on, right? Because to me, politics is not like a career, okay? It's like service to your community.
Yeah.
You join a service organization
Yeah.
or what have you, you do your thing.
Volunteer for committees,
Right,
whatever.
and then
Yeah.
you move on.
Yeah.
And so when I ran for regional council, it was because I was concerned how the region was dealing with the homelessness. We had the bulldozers
Yes,
at
yep,
Sterling
yep,
and
yep.
Charles. We had a lawsuit that the region had brought against homeless people, which as a lawyer didn't make sense to me. And I'm going to have 30 years, my 30th anniversary is coming up on Valentine's Day. So Greg, you'll be
Wow.
my Valentine.
Wow.
But, as a lawyer, I couldn't understand that. So that's why I stepped forward to deal with that. And now we've got the plan to end chronic homelessness. The outcome of that court decision may not be happy to some, but I was pleased with it, with the direction that the judge actually went. But at the end of the day, the region didn't need to do that.
Yeah.
Right? You already had the authority and the power to deal with
Yeah.
what you needed to do. So now I'm looking at this saying, okay, my skill set as a lawyer, as a small businessman, okay, think about it. We're pretty well same vintage. We've been through things like, I was just thinking about this, the pandemic.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought 5 years ago or 5 years before that, you'd say, world's going to shut down.
Oh.
We've been through so much as a community. And so my view is just, I had to step up to help out. And this is what I think is very important, because what I'm seeing is so much is happening. I'll give you we'll take, I know you'll have some people interested in this example, and I've used it a few times. And it's about policy and how provincial federal policy lands at the city level, right? I know we're kind of getting off the business thing.
That's
but,
okay. Carry on.
okay.
No, this is your time.
Okay, I appreciate that. So, the Ontario government, okay, under Doug Ford, decides that they're going to reduce tuition, right? Secondary tuition, they cut it by 5 or 10% or whatever. And then they said they're going to freeze it, right? And it's been frozen since about, 2018 or 2016
Yeah.
or whatever it is, 2018. So now you say, okay, if you're running a school, you're the president of a college or a university, you're going, okay, where am I getting the money to pay for the profs and pay for everything else I got to do, pay for the expansion? Building costs are going up, as we know, right? Construction costs are going up. So what happens is international students become the attraction. And so we have a large number of international students, which is great, but we didn't fairly tell a lot of international students, hey, you need more than $10,000 to come here.
Yeah.
Okay? And I don't think we did a good job with that. And then suddenly we have so many international students, and now there's competition for rent, because of food insecurity, there's issues at that level. But who's dealing with that? The cities and the municipalities are, right? And so that's why I'm saying that's an example how cities and municipalities are becoming so much more important in our society that we need that recognition at the provincial level in order to provide a better deal. Now, I don't want anyone to take what I said as a criticism of anything with respect to international students, okay? I'm just pointing out the ripple effect.
Yeah.
And clearly, the federal government decided now to swing the pendulum all the way the other way, which is, a knee-jerk reaction, which is not always good either, huge cutoff. But Conestoga College certainly benefited from all of that, right?
So did the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce, because we have 3 international
I know,
students
you have
that we've
excellent
hired, and they're
people.
great people.
But you can't hire more than 3.
No, I know. That's the problem.
I wish you could hire more.
We'd hire them all, because if they're reminiscent of the 3 folks that we have here, they're fantastic.
So I was just
contributors.
pointing out by that these things fall at the municipal level. Municipalities have to deal with it. We only have the property tax base, which is meant for, transit, transportation, roads, all that sort of thing. Not these other social issues that we deal with, public health.
So speaking of that,
Yeah.
and homes, Doug Ford came out, he wanted to build 1.5 million homes in 10 years.
Yeah.
We've never built that level. Well, never. We can't build that. That's almost double of what we've ever built ever.
Yeah.
But we need 1.5 million homes in 10 years. The problem I see with this is the government can't do that on its own. It's impossible for government to build, first of all, even at that pace, but they just don't have the resources to do that. They need the private sector to come along.
100%.
Private sector's not going to build it if they can't make a buck.
Don't blame them.
So they're not building right now. Why? Because, hey,
Right.
there's no market for it, right?
Don't blame them.
So
at all.
how do we fix that, Rob?
The problem is, again, okay, we have a premier that doesn't get it, okay? He sets a target of 1.5. He comes to Kitchener at a Ford Fest and says, we're going to have homes for everybody for under $500,000. He makes these statements. Look, I appreciate he's a populist politician, and he does well at that craft, okay? But when he sets policy decisions, like the example I just gave you on tuition, now he says we're going to build 1.5 million homes, and then they're trying to scramble to say, okay, did you meet your target? And they're adding long-term care beds to that target. I guess you and I will eventually maybe end up in one of those things, so that'll be our.
I hope not.
That'll be well. I don't know if you remember Ross Kelterborn,
Yes.
Former mayor of Wellesley. So, he's not doing great, and I visit him at Freeport on a weekly basis to see. But eventually, it happens to all of us. I got an aunt who's a 93-year-old Italian aunt, who's in a home. So all those things happen. But this is the point. We all knew, and we dealt with this. We talked about this when they had a commission that came here to Kitchener. We said at the time, we can't build those homes. The municipalities can approve, right? But the builders can't build because interest rates, construction costs, labor are way too high. So I don't blame the provincial government for that. What I do, though, is say, like, you're establishing policy without thinking of the next steps. All right? It's like, I'd say, sometimes you say, oh, someone's playing three-level chess and this guy's playing checkers. But I don't even know if they're thinking about the steps ahead on the checkerboard, right? And this is my problem is that, they say 1.5, and we got fewer homes this year than we've had in ages. So we're nowhere near that target. You don't hear them talking about it, right? So what do? Where's the policies to try and fix it? There's been accusations that municipalities are mismanaging their development charges. Okay, well, you and I know that's not the fact, all right? It's that sort of top-down approach, whether it's, it's that top-down approach, whether they're talking about ridings in Toronto or whatever. Sometimes I think he'd rather be mayor of Toronto than premier of Ontario. But, it's that top-down approach. And so I'm saying, okay, well, if it's a top-down approach, then we need more voices with municipal background up there to say, no, this is what's going on the ground floor, so we got to come up with something different. The Liberals have a policy with respect to first-time home buyers, homes, where they would remove the development charges from it, like 170,000, right? And you say, okay, well, hold on. You got to find the funding for that from somewhere. So they would build a fund that municipalities can tap into. So it's still coming out of pockets, right? But it is reducing the development charges by 170,000 so that you can then a home can be more affordable.
Spread over maybe 8 million rather than.
Well, yeah,
half a million, right?
setting the target 1.5 sounds good, it sounds sexy and everything else, but even at the start, it was a number that was never even reached. And they threw it out, so they set themselves up for the failure that it is. So to me, that's not good stewardship.
Well, I look at even locally in Cambridge, we've got tons of units that have been approved for development.
Right.
There's no bulldozers going to those
And
sites.
I don't blame them because I've met with developers. I've sat down and talked, and you talk to some of them, and they'll say, like, look, here's the facts. When I add the municipal charges, I add the cost and all of this, and then I got to add 10 or 15% for profit. I'm at $850,000. Okay, so what's the thing we can control somewhat is the development charges part of it. That's all we can control, really. So if we said, okay, we're going to take that out, and we'll have a fund for municipalities to help them do the infrastructure that they need, because you've got to have infrastructure, then that's something we can try and do. So,
campaigns are about really big issues, and, I think there's no question about it, there's some big issues, aside from, some of the things we've already talked about. Housing's a big issue. The tariff war or whatever it happens to be is a big... Family doctors are a big issue. Healthcare, just basic healthcare is a huge issue. The problem is, what I tell all politicians is, you can't do any of it without a business transaction happening somewhere.
Right, okay, yeah.
You need the funding from taxes in order to do the things you want to promise or you want to do.
That's right.
So,
100%.
Number one on every politician's agenda should be creating a strong and vibrant and thriving economy.
Oh, for sure.
How do we do that, given all of the turmoil around us? How do we do that so that we can fix all of these problems that we have in our societies?
Okay, well,
I know that's a big conversation.
much involvement does Greg DeRocher want from government in the economy, right? You know, they always say this thing about governments can't pick winners and losers, right?
Right.
But we can sort of create an environment to make
Right.
life better for people. So better internet access, right? High speed, get that out there. Support some of the infrastructure developments like Ring of Fire, those sorts of things, right? So there are certain selective things that government can do. But don't forget, we just came out of a pandemic 5 years ago.
Yep.
And I'd say, for the most part, we have a somewhat thriving economy. So we were able to overcome that to get to this point. And how did government do it? Well, you know, government spent a lot of money, right? And some might say they spent too much money. And, you know, it's hard to, but easy to criticize looking back at these sorts of things. But if government wasn't putting the money that they did into to support people, you know, it'd be difficult. But how about this? You know, my own business, my law practice has changed since the pandemic. And the internet has really changed all of that, right? Think if we didn't have the internet in place, who'd be working from home, right? And everyone said stay at home.
Yeah, nobody knew Zoom existed before March of 2020.
Well, it's not even that. I'm trying to remember the name of the product that they had before Zoom, right? And that that was like a beta VHS situation.
Yeah.
And that just got
Skype.
Skype, yeah. We used to say Skype. We never said Zoom.
No.
Suddenly now we say Zoom or Teams.
Yep.
Who says Skype anymore?
I know.
And
I know. You forgot the name of it, just like I did.
I haven't used it, but I
too.
used to say to people, what happened to Skype? But we came out of that, right? So government has to be selective in terms of how they, because without business thriving, but take a look, small business. Let's talk about small business for a sec. So I'll talk to like, and this is across the province, right? So we have a cottage in Prince Edward County, so I chat with I need a guy to come out and grind up some stumps, okay? So I'm chatting with him. I said, oh, he's on his own. I said, oh, you try to hire some people? He goes to the high schools, tries to get some kids to come on. He's doing the displays and all of that. And he said, but I can't pay enough for them to live, to rent, to buy a home.
Right.
Right? You can't. And so it's making it more difficult for people to do these jobs and live in a sustainable situation. And government's got to say, okay, how do we do this? You know, like look at in Ontario. In 2018, we got rid of rent controls on all new builds. Well, look at our, you know, I guess the idea, I'm sure the intention was it'll help build more, okay? But look at the rents, how they've gone.
Oh, I know. I know.
It's like, you know, it's tough. Now we're dealing with rent evictions out there. We deal with people that come in, take over a place, say, oh, I'm going to paint the walls, kick you out. It is a difficult situation. And a lot of people are, you know, homelessness is up, food bank use is up, people without a family doctor is up. You know, if we can't get people a home and medical care, how is our economy going to attract more workers, right? Like we can do, guys like you do a great job in terms of promoting our community, attracting business into our community, but you know they're going to say, okay, well, what do we got to take care of the workers here?
Yeah.
And that will be a big focus of mine, all right? So my focus is around healthcare, right? Healthcare, housing affordability, and economic development. And those are the three platforms that, as MPP, I will be
Just change them
focusing
around,
on.
put economic development,
Well, they're almost
healthcare,
all
and
together, but you know, look at Walkerton. Look at Walkerton on the family doctor situation, right? How many people were waiting in a snowstorm conditions for 5 hours?
I know.
To get in to see the family doctor.
Well, it's interesting because just recently, Bonnie Crombie, your leader, said that in 4 years everyone in Ontario that doesn't have a doctor will have a doctor.
Yeah.
And I look at that because we do physician recruitment.
Yes.
I understand that really, 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 really well.
Yep.
We don't have enough residency spaces in town, in the province, to be able to put graduating doctors into so that they can actually get out and practice. We just don't have them.
Right.
So,
and that's what, and the Liberal Party has a policy on that. Okay, so if you go to the OntarioLiberal.ca and look at the policy section, there's a specific one on family doctors. So they're looking to spend $3.1 billion, okay, to attract 3,100 family doctors. And they're promoting the team approach. You know, the doctors with the RNs, RPNs.
Yep.
Okay, so that team approach, they're promoting expanding the number of spaces in the medical schools and everything like. So that's a real plan. A real plan is not, I'm going to restrict foreign students from taking spots here in Ontario. That's not a plan. That's not expanding the number. You know, and the reason for the plan was because somebody told me about their son or daughter who went to a foreign school, met somebody there and stayed.
We work with them every day.
Well, fine, but that's not a plan, right? So
we have a doctor right now at a specialist at Cambridge Memorial Hospital. Has 2 kids in Ireland.
Right.
Who are doctors.
Right.
They want to come.
Yeah. But if we had expanded enrollment here and more classes here, they wouldn't be in Ireland. They'd be here right now.
Exactly.
And that's the Liberal plan. And it's, you know, think about it. Did you get your $200 check yet, Craig?
Yes, I did.
Okay, that $3.2 billion. If we put it into, would you be upset if we took that $200 from you and put it into expanding family doctors?
I'm probably giving it away somewhere anyway.
Well, of course. We didn't need the $200 checks. I mean, that to me, is that
Some people did. Some people did.
Of course, but is that...
And let them keep it.
Right, of course.
But I don't have a problem with it.
I mean, what is that politics?
I know.
Okay? I don't even...
retail.
Yeah, retail politics. I have this line, I say, well, you know, when you have a populist politician, premier, a lot of times they have knee-jerk reactions to things, okay? And when that knee jerks, we all get it, you know where.
Yeah. Rob, I want to give you a couple minutes to actually speak directly to those who will be going to the polls in February the 27th and tell them why they should vote for you.
Right. Well, Greg, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. A joy as always to have the chats with you. This is our 3rd time, sort of over 15 years that we've had this opportunity. Plus a few telephone calls, which have been good too. But you know, I just want to say to the people of Cambridge and North Dumfries, you know, take a look at my track record. All right, I have a legal background. I have a small business background. I have a municipal governance background. And I think through all of that, I've shown myself to be a strong advocate wherever I've been. And it's interesting, I'll just digress for 1 second. In Cambridge, so when I was mayor of North Dumfries, I used to hang a lot with Mayor Craig.
Yes.
You know, we got along. We were south of the 401, you know, that chip on the shoulder.
Mutt and Jeff, and you were Jeff.
Yeah, exactly. Batman and Robin. Well, I used to joke and say that the region was like Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, because we have 7 area municipalities, but I didn't want to say who was grumpy. But we would get together a lot, and sometimes he would invite me into some of the sessions they were doing. And one time he had a consultant come in because he wanted to know, how can Cambridge do better in the region? That was sort of the view, right? How can we do better in the region? And I know that view is out there. But the consultant, after looking at it, and I was there at the meeting with the other councillors, the consultant said, it's not a matter of doing better. It's a matter of, it's all right there for you. It's a matter of advocacy. It's about advocacy. So I think I can be that strong voice for Cambridge, that strong advocate that can help pump up Cambridge, because it's a wonderful community. It doesn't have to hold a light to anyone. It shines on its own. And I think I can be that voice and that active advocate that can help elevate Cambridge to the next level.
Rob, it's always a pleasure to sit down and talk with you.
It is.
We can go on forever and ever and ever, but we're out of time. We want to make sure that people actually watch this to the end. So. But anyway, February 27th is the important date to watch for. Get out to the polls. You can also go to elections.on.ca and you can see when the advanced polls are going to be there, how you can vote by mail. There should be no excuse, in spite of the fact that February 27th could be a terrible snowy day.
It might be well warmed up.
But, you know, all you have to do is call Rob and he'll make sure you get to the polls.
We'll drive you there.
One way or the other.
Dog sled, whatever.
Thanks very much.
Greg, good to see you.
Good to see you, my friend.